January 6th committee is promising new info as it holds its final hearing tomorrow. Congressman Adam Schiff says the hearing will tell the story about a key element of former President Trump's plot to overturn the election, and that the public will learn things it has not seen before. AB's News investigative reporter Catherine Falders and attorney Jeffrey Robbins join me now to unpack this a little bit. Catherine, what can we expect from this final hearing?
Well, look, we think some of this hearing will be a recap of sorts of what we've learned from the previous hearings. You know, the House has been, they were out of session for about a month over the summer. So during then, they continued their investigative work. We know that they've received more documents, that they've done more depositions with senior cabinet officials in Trump's administration, for example. We could see some of those clips as well. But as you mentioned, new information. We know that there's expected to be new video that we haven't seen that the committee will show. And look, I think they have received more of a paper trail of sorts from other documents they've received, and we'll also hear more witness testimony, pre-recorded, video-recorded witness testimony as well.
Now, Jeff, what does the committee need to show tomorrow to make its case for criminal charges against the former president?
Well, one of the challenges that the committee has, Diane, is living up to the expectations that it has already set. You know, after a series of hearings which really were incredibly compelling, and after 6 weeks in which we have heard, the American people have heard about, 300 separate Espionage Act violations with some obstruction of justice thrown in, there's the problem, there's the risk that unless the committee can produce footage of the former president at the Capitol with a can of bear spray in his hand, that people are going to say that the expectations haven't been met. Having said that, they don't have to add much to add to the body of evidence that would support a criminal referral or the Department of Justice prosecuting on its own. My guess is that what they're going to try to do is wrap this up for the American people and try to refocus people after 6 weeks in which there have not been these compelling hearings.
Catherine, so many people at this point have participated in these hearings in some form or another. What happens to all of them once this ends?
Well, look, I think as we've previously reported, too, the committee is going to still try and do some of these depositions. We know that the wife of Clarence Thomas, the Supreme Court Justice Ginny Thomas, has agreed to speak with the committee. We don't think that's going to happen before this hearing, for example. But there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered. Jeff was just talking about potential criminal referrals. While those are symbolic in nature, that's something that the committee needs to make a decision on. We're waiting for their report, for example, which members of the committee said might not come until early November. That's another step here. And then the big question, of course, is whether the committee publicly invites former Vice President Mike Pence and former President Trump to speak publicly at maybe another hearing, for example. All those questions are still on the table that we need answers to. And your question about the witnesses, what happens with them, where does that go? Obviously, some of these witnesses have been cooperating in the Department of Justice probe as well. That, of course, will continue to go on even as the committee winds down its investigation.
So, Jeff, what are you watching for as this wraps up?
Well, I'm watching for the committee to be able to refocus, as I said before, the American people. Unfortunately, this is now not a new shiny object. We face the problem of sort of a normalization of felonious conduct in the Oval Office, which is a problem, a strange problem indeed to have. And so the committee has the burden of knowing that Americans' attention has shifted to some degree, of refocusing them on just how grave a threat to America this coup attempt really was. That, I think, more than anything, is their challenge tomorrow.
And Jeff, given what they've done so far, do you think the committee has delivered on what it set out to do?
I think the committee has delivered that in spades. I mean, you have had tens of millions of people watching this. And seeing this kind of grotesque conduct in the Oval Office of a kind that we've never seen in American history before, I think that it has moved the needle, thank goodness, in some respects. It has caught people's attention. But as I say, people's attention does seem to wander a little bit. We've seen a lot over the last 6 weeks, as I say, a whole lot of apparent Espionage Act violations, some obstruction of justice. And I think the committee needs to kind of get people back on track thinking, look at what happened on January 6th and around January 6th. And that's, I think, the challenge of the committee and its very skilled staff.
So, Catherine, what will you be watching for and listening for this final hearing?
Look, I think obviously the questions that I mentioned before as it relates to the criminal referrals and whether to call Trump or Pence, for example, but also how they string together this broader narrative. We know that every hearing has focused on something individually, whether it's the pressure campaign on Mike Pence, whether it's the pressure campaign in the states, for example, or on the Department of Justice. This hearing, while it will be in some ways a recap, it's also going to be the bigger picture here. They will relitigate how Trump wanted to go to the Capitol that day and what happened there. We could see more evidence from the Secret Service, for example. So it would be the bigger picture and how they really string together this narrative overall of not just the day of January 6th, but leading up to the day of January 6th and, of course, the efforts after as well.
All right, Jeff Robbins, Catherine Falders, thank you both.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.